Hey guys, my name's Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 Ikoria standard cards for Magic the Gathering. And the top 5 that I'm going to present to you guys today is going to be collaboration between top 5 lists I've seen from other people and my personal experience from playing these cards so far in Standard. Now, I will say, this Standard format is really powerful. We got a lot of new stuff, and honestly, these new cards out of this set in particular, much more so in my opinion than Ikoria, is going to impact Standard a lot. So, without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, we're going to start with the honorable mentions. These are cards that I really like, but we're not exactly on my top 5 Ikoria cards, so let's go with that. So, the first one is Sea Dasher Octopus. Now, I know a lot of people are high on this card, and I think it's really, really good. It's basically a half creature, flash creature, and half Curious Obsession. So, it's a 3 mana, 1 generic, 2 blue. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You can also mutate it onto another creature. Now, one really cool interaction that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is Fairy Vandal. This is an uncommon that not a lot of people are playing, but it has a cool interaction where you mutate onto Fairy Vandal, and every time you attack, not only do you draw a card, but you put a counter on it. So it starts as a 2/2 flyer, flash flyer, and immediately comes to a 3/3, then a 4/4, 5/5. You're drawing cards, it gets bigger over and over and over again, and I just think that interaction is incredibly powerful. Now, whether a deck like this is, whether it's worth it to have that kind of card in your mono blue or Dimir deck, I'm not sure. But another card I thought worked really well is Dirgebat. This is another card that I wanted to mention. I'm not necessarily as high on it as other people are, just because some of the mechanics that are coming out of this set are so powerful. I just don't see how a 4-mana mutate creature is going to overshadow what the other cards that are going to be on this list. The thing about mutate is that it's very all in one basket. When you mutate onto a creature, you lose the other creature. So when you mutate Sea Dasher Octopus onto Dirgebat, yes, that's very powerful. But you have to also think that you are also losing a card at the same time. You don't have 2 bodies anymore. You only have 1. And so, though these effects are powerful, keep in mind that 1 kill spell is just ruins everything. Ruins all the work you put in. 1 wrath just ruins everything. And with some of these cards that I'm going to mention later on in the list, I just don't see how this deck is powerful enough to, or these cards are powerful enough to kind of overshadow some of the other stuff we're going to be talking about. So, another one I'm going to mention is Narset. This one's really, really cool, and I think that there is a deck that's going to want Narset, particularly a Teferi, Jeskai control deck. And what I really like about it is the ultimate is very similar to Chandra Torture Defiance. And so is the +1 in a way, because you get mana, you're going to gain 2 life, so that's really good against aggro, and on top of that, it has this -2 that you can, basically, you can draw a card, and then, this is important, that you may discard a card. You don't have to. So you automatically have this -2, draw 1, but on top of that, you can discard, like, one of the ultimatums that's come out, which I think, which pretty much kills anything, any of these bigger creatures. So this card's really good, but I just don't think the power level in of itself is good enough compared to the other stuff we're going to be talking about. So even though it's going to be really good in a Jeskai kind of shell, I don't think it's the best we could do. So With that as well, I also want to mention the Tri-lands, the Triome lands. Some people call them the Tricycle, because they also have cycle. They're 3 mana. They're 3 different mana lands. Also important to note that they are island, mountain, and plains that can also cycle for 3. They're really powerful, but they're not going to affect standard as much as it's going to be other formats. And I wanted to really focus on the other cards that aren't the land cycle. And one thing I want to mention is because we have these lands and no fast lands, we really don't have a lot of support for 2-color decks. So these are really going to push standard decks to a 3-color kind of wedge maybe style decks. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead to number 5. At number 5, I have Harless Act. Harless Act is a 2-mana instant in black, and it has 2 modes. You can either destroy a creature with no counters on it, or you can remove up to 3 counters from target creature. Now, there is, besides Hydrocrisis, there is practically 0 cards that have counters on it. I mean, yes, Nissa lands have 3 counters, but you can remove all 3 counters, and then there you go. You can get rid of the creature that way. But this is very similar to a Doomblade or a Cast Down, where this is your primary removal in black. And I think it's going to be extremely powerful because if you're looking at a lot of these mutate creatures, and a lot of these creatures that are going to be prevalent in the format, these are all cards that can be killed by Harless Act. And with removal like this, it is really important that this is really important removal that is not going to be dodged by a lot of these bigger creatures. So I think Harless Act is going to be one of the staples of the format. It's very, very powerful, and yeah, I mean, it's a Doomblade. I mean, Doomblade has seen play plenty of times. Cast Down saw a lot of play when it was in Standard, and honestly, I miss Cast Down a lot. So, and in some ways, this is just better than Cast Down. I mean, it hits a lot more things than Cast Down does. So, definitely very powerful. So, with that out of the way, let's go to our number 4, which is going to be Shivel, Bane of Monsters. 2 mana, 1 black, 1 green, for a death-touching human rogue, 1/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponent controls no permanents with bounty counters on them, put a bounty counter on a target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So already, this works really well in this format, especially because of, like we were saying before, big creatures. This blocks them. This gives you immediate card draw and life gain against these creatures, and this is probably going to be best in some sort of black-green style of like mid-range kind of shell. So you can play Chevelle in either an Abzan or a just straight black-green style mid-range deck, and you can just, you know, play Chevelle on 2. On turn 3, they play their big thing, and then you can just kill, draw a card, kill, draw a card, and just keep getting in over and over and over again. And at the very least, you could just trade. Trading with a Snapdax, for example, with a Chevelle is perfectly fine. I mean, that especially with all these mutate creatures that are going to be running around, Death Touch is going to be incredible because all it takes is one hit with Death Touch, and that's it. So, I think Shivel, however you say it, is going to be one of the best cards in the format, definitely. So, going on to number 3, it's going to be Riel the Everwise. This is my favorite card. I love this card so much. It's so fun. 3 mana in Izzet and one generic mana. for a human wizard, 0/3. Riel, the Everwise, gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Whenever you discard one or more cards for the first time in each turn, draw that many cards. Now the important part is when you discard one or more cards. So, you Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards, draw 6. That's broken. That's busted. You 2 mana on turn 3. You play Riel. Next turn, Cathartic Reunion, draw 6 cards. You can off of this. You can also do something similar with Thrill Possibilities, where you discard a card, draw 3. That's just incredible. It also works really well with cycling cards. But what I really think will work really well with Riel is some sort of Arclight Phoenix deck. Now, Arclight Phoenix was somewhat playable in Standard when it was actually kind of decent when it first came out, and honestly, we haven't seen a lot of Arclight Phoenix since Guilds came out. So I think this is probably where Riel is going to end up. It's some kind of Arclight Phoenix style sorcery speed spell slinger style deck. So, and let's be real, you know, just a couple of spells just makes this creature just huge. So I think that Riel is definitely going to see play. Whether it's this type of deck or maybe some other deck, some sort of like maybe cycling deck, I think this card is especially powerful. So, with that said, let's go to our number 2, which is going to be Loras of the Dream Den. I don't even know where to begin with this card. Loras is broken. It's already breaking Vintage and Legacy, and it's gonna break Standard too. I mean, the companion mechanic is already powerful, and the restriction with Loras is not that difficult. I mean, let's talk about cards we already talked about. Heartless Act. You can play Loras, immediately play a Heartless Act, kill your thing. You can play Loras, immediately get your shovel back. I mean, we can even go further with a whole shell around it. We can play Fiend Artisan, tap, sacrifice a Cauldron Familiar, and get a Croxa, and then use Witch's Summon to kick Croxa, get the Familiar back. It's just this card is so good. It's so good. It slots into so many decks already without having to change a whole lot. And, you know, Aristocrats is already a good deck. So, even if you don't use it as your companion, I could see this in the main deck as a multiples of them, like at least 3 of, you know, maybe even 4 of in an Aristocrat style deck. I mean, just Loras is already breaking older formats, and if it's breaking older formats, that's a real good sign that's gonna break Standard. So I definitely think that Loras it's something you really need to watch out for. I think it's one of the best cards, but not the best. The best card, in my opinion, is even more ridiculous than Loras somehow, and that is Garuda, Doom of the Depths. Now, before you immediately go to the comments and say I'm crazy, this card's already busted because, one, there's already a combo with this card where you can Garuda from your exile. Remember, you start the game with it every game. You have Garuda in the sideboard. You cast it. You mill over. You get to a Spark Double. You immediately copy it. Get another copy of Garuda. Just hit another again. Maybe even you can even Charming Prince. You can blink Garuda. Do it again, over and over and over again. And what can you get off of this? Well, let's say your opponent's playing a Narset. You can just immediately get value off of that, even if you don't hit a Spark Double or a Charming Prince or a Thassa or some other way of blinking it. And or you can hit it in Razor. Remember, it's any card with even converted mana cost. Doesn't matter how much it was. Any card. So right there, you win the game just off of that. I mean, it just, this card is, what was Wizards thinking with this card? Like, honestly, like, it's so insane. If you hit 2, 3 Spark Doubles, or Charming Princess, or waste getting this trigger over and over and over again, I mean, you're putting 6 sixes over and over and over again. And I mean, it's not that hard to ramp. We have some of the best ramp spells that we've seen in years. We have plenty of cards like Growth Spiral that we can just immediately ramp on that curve. I mean, yes, our curve's going to be weird because it's all even cards, but I think it's worth it. We have tap land, so we have things to do on turn 1. I mean, I just think this card is unbelievably broken. I think this card is going to see, along with Loras, a ban in Standard unless they fundamentally change Companion. Which maybe I'll make a video about that too, but I think these 2 cards are just some of the most broken we've seen in a long time. So, Garuda, the best card in Standard coming up right now, in my opinion. But what do I know, you know? So, thank you so much for watching my video. I would appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe, anything you could do to support the channel. I really appreciate it. So, if you agree, disagree, just go in the comments, let me know what you think. I'd love to talk to you guys about what, some of the brews you guys are talking, working on. So, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you next time.